Capitol Hill could experience deja vu next week when it is expected the House will hold a second vote as soon as Tuesday on impeaching Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. Yes, they plan to vote again, despite falling short by a single vote to impeach him on Tuesday of this week. 3 Republican lawmakers joined their Democratic counterparts to oppose impeachment. Representative Tom McClintock of California was one of them. He did not mince words about why, releasing a 10-page memo ahead of the vote saying his party did not find an impeachable crime against Mayorkas, according to the definition of grounds for impeachment laid out in the Constitution. But make no mistake, McClintock is no Mayorkas fan. The memo declared the secretary's tenure is, quote, a disaster for our country. Joining us now is Representative McClintock. He is also the chair of the House Committee of Integrity, Security, and Enforcement. Congressman, great to have you on the show. You wrote in a 10-page memo that the articles of impeachment drafted by the Homeland Security Committee failed to, quote, identify an impeachable crime that Mayorkas has committed. Are you hoping to convince the House not to take a second vote on this?
Well, I'm certainly doing my best. Every member will vote as conscious. But as you pointed out, I've got nothing nice to say about Mayorkas. He is guilty of maladministration on a truly cosmic scale. But that's not an impeachable offense. And we know that because the American founders specifically considered that and rejected it as being far too broad. They were concerned that it would turn the presidency into a mere servant of the Congress. So they replaced maladministration with high crimes and misdemeanors, very specific meaning, crimes relating to the office.
So why do you think House leadership is so intent on taking another vote on this?
Again, I can't read minds, and I certainly don't question their motives. But even in the fantasy world where the Senate would actually vote to remove him, do you really think that that would improve the situation by replacing Mayorkas with, say, Ocasio-Cortez? This is not a crisis that can be solved by impeachment. It can only be solved by replacing the entire administration, and that can only be done by the American people at the ballot box.
Yeah, you point out that it will accomplish nothing because he's just executing the Biden policy. And Biden stays in office even if you get rid of Mayorkas. You go on to say the deadly serious crisis on the border will have been trivialized into a partisan caricature if we do this. And this all comes, Congressman, as the House refuses to vote on the new border bill crafted by some of the most conservative members of the Senate, like Senator James Lankford, who says he was threatened and told to drop the bill even before anyone read it. Why isn't Congress at least voting on something that the Border Patrol Union says it needs right now?
Well, because it's an absolutely terrible bill. I've looked at that bill pretty carefully, Elizabeth, and it would be a giant step backwards. You know, first of all, you have to understand the enforcement of immigration law gives the president a huge amount of discretion. And you can see the difference just comparing Trump and Biden. No laws changed. On the day that Trump left office, the border was secure. We were actually enforcing court-ordered deportations. The Remain in Mexico policy had slowed phony asylum claims to a trickle. We were nearing completion of the border wall. Biden takes office, reverses all of those policies, and initiates the largest illegal mass migration in the history of the country. Now, here's the thing about this bill. My biggest concern is it requires the administration to allow up to 4,000 illegal entries a day. They're required to do that. That's an improvement over Biden. But suppose the next president actually is serious about securing our border. This makes it impossible for him to do so. This says we don't care how you want to secure the border. You still have to let 4,000 illegal entries in every single day.
Right. Well,
granted,
and just to make sure we all understand, when Trump left office, we were in the middle of the pandemic. Title 42 was in effect, and he wasn't almost done with the border wall. Very little of the border wall.
The Border Patrol tells us that simply reinstating the Remain in Mexico policy would reduce illegal immigration by more than 70%.
But so if you're quoting,
and that's within That's within the parameters of the president's discretion. This takes that discretion away from him.
But so if the Border Patrol Union says it wants this bill, the Wall Street Journal, conservative newspaper, has endorsed this bill. Chamber of Commerce has endorsed this bill. Senator Langford is one of the most conservative members of the Senate, says this is the most conservative bill we're going to get. Why not at least get this bill on the books right now? Isn't there an emergency right now?
Elizabeth,
Should we do something right now?
Elizabeth, I just told you, this would tie the hands of any future presidents who actually want to secure the border. And while we're at it, this administration has refused to enforce existing law. Why would we expect that it will enforce some future law?